So I was a youth pastor for 5 years, way out on the edge of Ottawa in North Gore. I don't know if, like, when I come into Ottawa, nobody knows where North Gore is, but just drive down Prince of Wales until it ends. Yeah, it's a good 25 minutes. But I found myself in this kind of bad place when I was there, where like I just emotionally and mentally, I thought that I had to say yes to helping everybody. And when you're a pastor, there's a lot of people that need your help, and especially teenagers. And so I thought, like, this is what Jesus wants me to do. This is what, like, Jesus goes around and he helps everybody. So surely, as if I'm called to be a pastor, I should go around and help everybody, right? And so I would do that, and instead of getting the blessings raining down from heaven that I was expecting, I got burnt out. So I found that, like, my family life was kind of in shambles because I wasn't around to participate very often because I was too busy helping the next person. When I was home, I was too emotionally exhausted to be a good parent and husband. So what I was left with was I was just angry. I was just discontent all the time with everybody. Like I was mad at the people at church because they didn't volunteer to do all the things, so I had to volunteer to do all the things. And I was mad at my kids because they would leave a mess behind when, they finished, because they're kids. So they, have breakfast and they just leave it on the counter and then run off to school because they don't plan their time well. But then now I have to clean that up. So that's another thing that I have to do. So now I'm mad at my kids. And then I'm mad at my wife because she's not the wife that I expect. And then I'm mad at the government, like John kind of hinted at this morning, because they're not honoring God the way that I think that they should, or they're not spending my taxes the way that I think that they should. And then, like, so you get it. Like, I'm mad at the world. And then I have a background in the trades. So, like, that's how I paid my way through school. I just kind of wandered into the trades one day and realized I can read a tape measure, I can do this. So it stuck. And that means that, one, I can't buy a nice house like normal people do. I need to buy a piece of junk and fix it. And two, that everybody else wants my help. If they don't want my help pastorally, they want my help because I know how to, patch drywall and build a wall or whatever you need. Right? John doesn't ask me for things, though, except for this. Do you know, this is the third time I've been here on a Sunday and I've never heard John preach. So, does it happen? I don't know. Anyways, so, like, I couldn't let people who I thought needed help not get help. So I thought I need to help everybody, which I then learned that, like, I don't think I really helped anybody. I tried to fix their problems. And then as a result, like, my family suffered, my energy levels were nothing, my emotions suffered, my mental health suffered, and I just blamed the world. And I would just pray and pray and pray, like, for years, that Jesus would take this anger away from me. And I didn't want to do less things because I thought I was doing God's work, helping everybody that I came in contact with. I wanted to do the same amount of stuff. I just wanted to have peace doing it. I wanted my home life to be great. And I wanted, basically I wanted God to show up and make my kids clean up after themselves, and everybody to just, like, I don't know, volunteer for more things at church, or I don't really know what my expectation was, but I just wanted God to, like, take away this anger so that I could be happy and continue to live my life exactly the way I was living my life. Everybody else too? Yeah. Jesus, show up, but I want to keep doing what I'm doing. So of course, my prayer didn't get answered. And like, for years, I prayed this over and over and over again, and Jesus didn't answer my prayer. And honestly, I got a little frustrated with God about it. And I'm a pastor, you're not allowed to be frustrated with God. So that was more problems to deal with. So then on one of my darker days, a friend of mine called, and for possibly the first time in my life, because like, someone asks you, like, hey, how's it going? And you're always like, oh, it's fine. Oh, I'm okay. And for the first time in my life, I think, I didn't say that. And I told him what was actually going on. And so then my friend started talking to me about the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm like, I'm not an alcoholic. I'm not an addict. Like I quit drinking when I turned 19 because I woke up in a hospital and I didn't like that. So that was the end of it for me. Like but he shows me about how like I'm trying to run my own life through trying to fix everybody else's problems and control everything around me. And he starts showing me this. I'm like, oh, like I'm playing God and not letting God be God. So then I wandered in here on Thursday evenings, and I haven't left. So free plug, Thursday evening, 7:30, Upper Room Recovery Meeting. It's the place to be. Yeah, it helped me. It can help you too. But I think a lot of you know that. So what happened though was like Jesus didn't miraculously remove my anger like I was expecting him to, because surely like anger is kind of sinful, especially the way I was handling it. And so I would think, oh, Jesus doesn't want me to be a sinner. He wants me to be a pastor. So he should just remove this from my life and I'm going to, carry on doing all the things that I do. But instead, I came in and I started doing the steps, and like, yeah, I still get angry, especially with the government and my kids' messes. But like, it's better. It's still there, but I'm growing, I'm improving, and like Jesus, I think, is answering that prayer, just not the way that I expected or wanted him to. Like, do you guys have that experience where God doesn't show up the way that you thought? Yeah, everybody knows. So if you take a look at me, is it on the screen, John? Matthew 20, verse 17. I'm going to read it anyways. So if you have your Bible and you want to follow along, Matthew 20, verse 17. I got the NIV here because I think that's the Bible that you have at the back. If you don't own a Bible, there's Bibles at the back. So it starts off. Now Jesus was going up to Jerusalem. On the way, he took the 12 disciples aside and said to them, "We are going up to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man will be delivered over to the chief priests and the teachers of the law. They will condemn him to death, and he will hand him over to the Gentiles to be mocked and flogged and crucified. On the third day, he will be raised to life." So, like, Jesus kind of just laid it out for the disciples, right? Like, he's telling them, like, we're going to go into Jerusalem, and they're going to kill me. And I don't know what the disciples heard, but it's not what we're reading, I don't think. Like, they must have heard, like, eventually they're going to kill me, or, like, we're going to go in there, and, like, later I'm going to die in 50 years. I'm not sure what they heard, but it doesn't seem to be what I'm reading exactly. Because then if you skip down to verse 20, the next thing that happens, according to Matthew, is then the mother of Zebedee's sons, so this is James and John, two of the disciples, came to Jesus with her sons and kneeling down asked for a favor. So that's a nice way to ask things of Jesus. You're kneeling down, you're kind of worshiping him. I think that's the way to do it. And he says, "What is it you want?" She said, "Grant that one of these two sons of mine may sit at your right and the other at your left in your kingdom." Like, I don't know if she just heard that. Like, maybe when it says, then she came, like, she didn't hear what Jesus just said. But, like, the 12 were there. James and John heard this. Like, Jesus just said, I'm going to go into Jerusalem and die. And then their mom comes up and is like, "Hey, when you go into your kingdom, can these two sit on your right and left?" I don't think they got it. And like, it seems pretty plain when I read this in my English Bible, what's going on, but they didn't get it. And like for years, there's been all these prophecies, and if you've read the New Testament and kind of Jesus' story in the Gospels, like there's all these little things that show up where it's like, oh yeah, and this was talked about by the prophets in the Old Testament, and like Jesus is fulfilling all these things. So the people are starting to get it. They're like, this is the Messiah. This is the king we were waiting for. This guy's going to save us. He's going to, kick out the Romans. He's going to do his thing. He's going to set up his kingdom. Israel's going to be great. And so I think that idea kind of messed up their hearing Jesus say, we're going to go into Jerusalem and I'm going to die. And what they're hearing is, we're going to go into Jerusalem and I'm going to set up my kingdom. So she's asking, like, can my sons have this place of honor when you set up your kingdom? And Jesus is like, no, you don't know what you're asking for. My kingdom's not what you expect. And I think we all have these expectations that God would move in our lives in certain ways, and he has a totally different plan sometimes, right? And I find myself in this place often where I expect God to treat me in a certain way, and that my life would go better than it sometimes does, or that my possessions would be blessed because I'm a good Christian, so my stuff should just never break. And sometimes I go out to sit in my hot tub in the evening, and then I find out that it doesn't have any water in it, or the water's cold, or like this has happened a few times. I don't own a nice hot tub. And then I miss the I own a hot tub. It's okay. Or like the hundreds of times that I've actually got to sit in my hot tub and like look up at the stars. And I don't really know why God created stars. They don't give us that much light. And I'm not a sailor, so I don't need directions at nighttime. So I imagine like God just made the stars for me to look at and be like, wow. And like God knows how many stars there are. Like he knows how many. And like with all this science and telescopes and everything that we've made, we can't even count them all. We haven't seen them all. We have no idea. And then it says in the Bible that God knows their names. He named the stars. I can't keep my 4 kids' names straight. It's crazy. So anyways, next time it's nighttime, spend some time in awe of God. But like how often do we expect something of Jesus that's not what we get, and then we miss what he's doing because we're disappointed that he didn't do what we wanted? Like if Jesus would just behave the way I wanted, my life would be better, wouldn't it? So that's probably the most sacrilegious thing that's been said up here. But I think like you guys might not say it that bluntly, but you agree, right? Yeah. I didn't get struck by lightning. It's okay. Yet. So this is Palm Sunday, as we said a few times. Was anybody paying attention and know what Palm Sunday means? This is like youth pastor, real question. This is just like the youth group would respond, what? No. Yeah, often I would hand out like chocolate bars and stuff, but I wasn't that prepared. So Palm Sunday is because Jesus is going to go right into town on a donkey, and everyone's so excited that they start ripping these little palm branches off, and they're waving them around. Oh, yay, Jesus is here. He's going to be the king to save us. And then they start throwing them on the road so that the donkey that Jesus is riding on doesn't have to walk on the dirt. I don't really get that part, but I guess they thought so highly of this Jesus that they're like, yeah, that animal that he's riding shouldn't step on dirt. That's pretty special. So we can read the story. So when we're reading this story, I want you to pretend that you don't know anything about Easter. So take everything that we've been told about Easter and forget it for just a minute, because I mean it's super important. It's Easter. So don't forget it forever. Just forget it for the next 3 minutes. So Matthew 21, if you're following along, starting at verse 1. As they approached Jerusalem and came to Bethphage on the Mount of Olives, Jesus sent 2 disciples, saying to them, "Go into the village ahead of you, and at once you will find a donkey tied there, and with her colt by her. Untie them and bring them to me. If anyone says to you anything, say to the Lord needs them, and he will send them right away." This took place to fulfill what was spoken through the prophet. Say to the daughter Zion, see, your king comes to you, gentle and riding on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey. So this is out of the prophet Zechariah, which you can read about later this afternoon if you want. It's chapter 9. And so right after this, it starts talking about how like when the king comes in, he's gonna like end war and he's gonna bring peace and his reign's gonna be from sea to sea, and like it's pretty impressive. And this is what the people are hearing when Jesus is like saying this. They're hearing like, oh yeah, the king's gonna come and he's gonna, like this is the moment. He's riding on a donkey. This is the moment where the king's coming in. And if you know the story, it doesn't go that way. And so continuing, verse 6, and the disciples did as Jesus had instructed them. They brought the donkey and the colt and placed their cloaks on them for Jesus to sit on. And a very large crowd spread their cloaks on the road, while others cut branches, the palm branches, from the trees and spread them on the road. The crowds that went ahead of him and those that followed shouted, Hosanna to the Son of David. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest heaven. When Jesus entered Jerusalem, the whole city was stirred and asked, who is this? The crowds answered, this is Jesus, the prophet from Nazareth in Galilee. So does anybody know what Hosanna means? No? Yeah. So it means something along the lines of like, save us now, please, or grant us salvation. So that's what the people are shouting. They're like, save us, because they have that expectation. This is the king who's going to come and he's going to save us from the oppressive Romans. But then so they follow it up. It's Hosanna to the Son of David. So if you are a Bible scholar, you may be like, I thought Jesus' dad was the Holy Spirit. Or maybe I thought Jesus' dad was Joseph, right? So this David that they refer to, any guesses? No. So it's King David. I'm sure you guys have all seen some medieval movie or something like from that timeline where I would maybe introduce myself as I'm Nathan, son of Jim. My dad's name is Jim. And I could do that in a place like Pembroke where my dad lives, because my dad's kind of a big deal for Pembroke. But I've done that in places where I'll go in somewhere and I'll be like, oh, I'm Nathan. Jim Ghost is my dad. And then people know right away, oh, okay, yeah, we know your dad. And so that's what's happening here, except this is Jesus, the son of David, not the son of Joseph, because maybe the people don't know who Joseph is, but everybody knows who King David is. This is the second king of Jerusalem, but oh dear. No, it's going badly. Okay, they had they had this expectation that this king is going to come and he's going to be in the line of David, because God made this promise to David that one of his descendants was always going to sit on the throne. So then when Jesus comes on the scene, and if you read Matthew chapter 1, they've got this nice little genealogy, and one of the people on there is King David. And then it works its way down and you end up at, I think, Mary, who's the mother of Jesus. And what an unexpected turn of events when you go from singing on Sunday, oh, we're so excited that Jesus is the king who's coming, the son of David, who's going to save us from our oppression. And then on Friday, he gets handed over to get killed. Our call to worship said, you either you're waving a palm branch or you're grabbing wood and a hammer. And maybe this is I try and imagine what would have been going through these people's minds and that feeling where you're like, this is the guy. And then you're like, this is not the guy. What a disappointment. You spent your whole life kind of waiting for this moment. There's thousands of years of prophecies about this is going to happen. And then this is not the guy that we thought this was the guy. And I wonder if do you think that's why it switched so fast? In a matter of days, they went from Hosanna, the king, the son of David, and they're singing praises and waving palm branches. And then on Friday, they're like, crucify this guy. This is not what we expected. This is not the guy. He was supposed to come in and save us from our oppression, and he didn't. He got handed over like a thief. And that's me too. Like how quickly do I change my mind about how I feel about Jesus? Or really I'm like, does God love me? Like, he didn't do what I was expecting. Is this the guy? And I suspect, like, if I focus and try to notice the ways that God is loving me, whether or not he's met my expectations, I'm going to be a lot happier. But if I take it a step farther, and it's not just about me and God, I think this is a problem that a lot of us have in all of our relationships, where, you know, I expect things from my wife, I expect things from my kids, I expect things from some of you, and then you don't meet those expectations. Like, am I mad about it? Sometimes. And like, I think we do that to everybody. But especially Jesus. And if I focus on that one negative thing, then it can ruin the whole relationship. So I build decks now. And this week we finished a deck, and the homeowner's out, and like, so we're doing this little condo neighborhood. I think we got 5 decks in there. And the homeowner comes out and she's so excited, and she's like, yeah, I love it. It was better than my expectations. And you know, that's what you want to hear when you just made something. And you know, this is better than I thought. But then there's a but. She doesn't like this one little thing where, like, her deck isn't exactly the same as her neighbor's deck. And so do I, you know, be excited that someone likes something I built? Or am I going to let it eat away at me because it wants to? It wants to eat away at me that she doesn't like that it's not the same as her neighbor's deck. Like, do I need to redo the whole deck now so it's the same? Next year, we're probably going to do the neighbor's deck, so it'll work out. But, like, is she going to live with that for a year? Or do we need to do it again? And, you know, I got to choose. Like, I'm just going to be happy. I'm going to try anyways, really hard, to just be happy that she is thrilled that she has a new deck and it's better than her expectations, and ignore that it's not the same as her neighbor's. Or like, you know, my one daughter, I can focus on that, you know, she didn't hang up her backpack when she got home from school, or that she was fighting with her siblings this morning, or like when we came in, she ran up and gave John a hug. And this is just what she does. And like, I get home from work and she gives me a hug. The first thing that she does in the morning is she comes and finds me and gives me a hug. And like, do I want to focus on that, or that she didn't, you know, hang up her backpack, or she's fighting with her siblings? And like I got to choose. Am I waving the palm branches, or am I grabbing my hammer? And I have a lot of hammers. And like, what a wasted experience I have when I focus on like these negative things and how, and you know, the messes my kid leaves, and instead of like the smiles and the laughter and the good parts of relationships. But it's so easy to get caught up in the disappointment when my expectations aren't met. And so, a recent example of how God kind of showed up in a way I didn't expect is my wife is going to go do a master's degree. And so, I quit my job about 1.5 years ago at the church, and I kind of, you know, I spent some time healing, and because I have a background in the trades, I started just doing things, you know, because now people would ask me for stuff, and I'm like, oh yeah, I can do that, and I'd go and I'd make a little money here and a little money there, and it was nice, and it kept me busy. But now if my wife's going to go get a master's degree, well, then she's not going to work, which means I don't have a sugar mama anymore, and I need to be an adult and have a job. So then I think 3 days after she got her acceptance letter to school, then my friend calls and he's like, hey, do you want to come and build decks for the summer? Because he's looking for Christian guys, and he kind of knows my skill set. And so I'm like, yeah, well, kind of sounds like maybe God's up to something. Because I had looked a few times for jobs, and I kind of felt like God just kept saying like, wait, I have something. And, you know, now something just showed up, which is kind of how God works, right? And like, so, you know, he's looking for Christian employees, because if you've been in the trades, you know the difference between Christian trades guys and the the non-Christian trades guys, and maybe some of you have been the non-Christian trades guys before. And then this really cool thing happened where, because my goal is I need to make as much money as my wife makes now so that, we can maintain our standard of living and I can have my cheap hot tub. And so at first, like, I told him that, and he's like, yeah, I don't know, like, I don't really pay guys to build decks that much. And so then I went in for a working interview, because that's how the trades works. He has never seen my resume. I just went in and like showed him what I could do. And at the end of the day, and I explained to him, like this is how much I want to make because that's what my wife makes. But ultimately, God is my employer, and what I make is between you and him, really. And maybe I don't need as much as I think I need. And then at the end of my working interview, he said, yeah, I think I can get you there. Like, we'll spend a couple weeks. You'll see how I want to do things. And then I think we can get you there. Great. And I don't think my work was that impressive. I think God kind of showed up and spoke to him and said, like, this is the guy. And you should pay him accordingly. So if you know about decks, you don't build decks in the winter. So now I can spend the next however many months we are, like 8 months. 8 months until, deck season building kind of ends. I could spend that time worrying, like, what am I going to do in January when I now don't have an income and my wife is still not working because she's in school? What do I do? Or I can be like, well, God showed up now. I assume that he's going to show up and do something cool in December or January or whenever we stop. So I'm going to choose to trust that God's just going to show up because he has so many times. But it's generally not the way I expect. So like the disciples, I expect God to show up in a certain way, but is what Jesus did not better than what the people seem to be expecting? Like, he didn't just chase the Romans out. Like, if you come to church next week and on Friday and you watch the Passion of the Christ, or if you go somewhere else on Friday, like, Jesus dying on the cross was so much better than Jesus rolling in and being the king and kicking out the Romans. So much better. And if you don't know that, you should definitely be here on Friday and on Sunday. But like through that act, Jesus redeemed all of humanity. Not just like the people in Israel, but the people of Rome, the people of Greece, like everybody. And not just back then, but all of us in the room now today, all of the people in the future, our kids upstairs are redeemed, even though they don't behave like it sometimes. And like Jesus just shattered everyone's expectations. Because we thought, oh, like this earthly king, well, not we, they thought this earthly king is coming, and Jesus did come to be a king. And there was a king riding on a donkey that day, but he wasn't coming to, reign over Israel. He was coming to reign over the earth in a more spiritual way. So what I want you to hear, though, here is that like God loves you, and his love is going to be greater than your expectation. And if you're like me, that probably sounds kind of nice sitting there. And this afternoon you're going to forget because something doesn't meet your expectations. And like, I don't know about you, but like, I feel like this high school girl, and I have my flower, and I'm like, he loves me not. And I've never done that for real. And it's like, oh, I got a job I needed. He loves me. Oh, but my freezer broke. He doesn't love me. And it's like, oh, like Jesus died for my sins. He loves me. Oh, my kids are terrible, and it makes me feel like I'm a bad parent. He doesn't love me. And like, do you guys feel that? And like, when he doesn't meet my expectations, it must be because God doesn't love me. And then you have this pity party, right? And then this pity party gets in the way of, when God shows up and you get the job, or the hot tub works and you can look up at the stars, or whatever the thing is, or like your freezer works. That's a pretty normal one that probably all of us enjoy and nobody acknowledges. And And I feel like my head gets it and my heart is kind of slow, right? Like I get it. I read it in the Bible. I know that God loves me, but do I know? And I think this kind of internal struggle, this self-pity battle that goes on, and it makes me miss the things that God is doing, where he loves me, or anybody else for that matter. I miss these moments because I'm having my own little pity party, because I have this expectation that if God loves me, that my life will go well. And I got stuck on that word well. And I don't have a better word, but like I have expectations of what well means. Like, this is how my life is going to go because God loves me. And the reality is, like, and I think most of you would agree, that my life is better because Jesus showed up, right? And it's not what I thought, though. It's not my expectation of, like, my hot tub doesn't break, my freezer lasts for 1,000,000 years, everything is dandy, but it's just like, I don't know, there's sometimes this peace inside. And I think that's what God is offering a lot of us, or all of us, is that, like, when life doesn't go your way, there's still this peace inside. And I remember, like, one of the worst things that happened in my life is when my mom died. And as some of you have lost a parent, it's awful. And unfortunately, probably all of us are going to go through that at some point, or have. But then, like, this peace of God just showed up in this time that should be terrible. And it was, but, like, there was just this peace, and it was like tangible peace. And it's like there's this verse in the Bible that says, like, this peace beyond, understanding. And that's what it was. Like, I didn't understand. How is there peace right now? But, like, that's love, isn't it? When something unexpected happens like that, and God just shows up and he brings comfort and peace. And I bet most of you have a similar story, right? Where God just kind of showed up in a time you didn't expect, in a way you didn't expect, on, like, your worst day. So I would challenge you that you would tell somebody about that. Like, share that story with somebody who maybe hasn't heard it, and how, like, God showed up in one of your darkest times. But how quickly we forget. Because that was 3 years ago, and, like, I forget real fast that God just shows up like that sometimes. And I think one of the things that I've learned in my marriage over the last year and a half is that you need to set the expectation. So then my wife and I, we try and communicate, like, this is what I'm looking for, this is what I want. And did you know you can do that with Jesus too? Like, you should talk to Jesus and say, like, this is kind of what I'm expecting. And I mean, it's going to be different, because sometimes my wife will be like, oh yeah, I can do that. And Jesus is going to be like, yeah, I'm the king of the universe, I'm going to do what I want. But like have that conversation. Like, Jesus wants to hear from you. He wants to know what's on your heart. What are you expecting him to do? How do you want him to show up? And he might not do it how you want, but, like, he's going to show up.